I'm Gabby. I am here representing the channel called Tilt Entertainment. So my partner Ed created the channel back in 2012 to talk about World of Warcraft in general, and I joined his channel on 2023. So it is a pleasure to be here with this opportunity, gathering some information, meeting you all. So I just wanted to thank you and Blizzard for this opportunity.
Right. Well, hey, I guess I'll just start off with a little quick introduction, and maybe then George, you can do the same, and Gabriella, if you want to kickstart from there. So, my name is Michael Bybee. I'm the production director on World of Warcraft. I've been back on the team for about a year. Before that, I worked on Diablo 4 for a few years, and before that, I was part of the team that shipped Legion and Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands.
My name is George Velov. I'm a game producer on the World of Warcraft team. I've been here for about 4 years. I think the first expansion I worked on as a developer was Shadowlands. For the War Within, I worked on features like hero talents, the RPG Blitz, Deep Ravine, class updates, things of that nature. And before I was on the dev team, I was on the QA team, testing things like encounters and classes. So been around for a while.
Interesting. I love Diablo 4, by the way. Okay. So my first question is, from what we know so far, the War Within campaign is kind of shorter than the previous expansions, so the players won't be able to hit max level via the campaign alone. Was this done to make the players explore more of the local lore, the new zones, instead of just focusing on the main campaign? And if so, what would that experience look like?
Yeah, sure. So just to be really clear, the level up campaign is a little shorter than it was in Dragonflight, but there's actually a whole max level campaign after that that's pretty great. And the way you can kind of think about it is, like a lot of stuff in the game, we're always balancing and trying to find like what works best for players in the best way. And what we found with Dragonflight is that a lot of players got about halfway through that level up campaign and they were already max level. And when you get to level 70 in Dragonflight, you start to get a whole bunch of other things starting to pull at you, like go do world quests, go do dungeons, gear up, do all this other stuff. And so you started to get a lot of that like competition for your time and attention. And so what we decided to do for the War Within is try to streamline that level up campaign, make it a little punchier. We think it's actually a lot more powerful, and it's got some really great character stories. But then we filled the world with more local stories, so some of the side quests and interesting stuff like that you can choose to do while you're leveling up, but you could do it at any time. And that hopefully is going to lead to players as they level up. They feel like they get the main gist of the story, they get to max level, and then they're able to engage in the rest of the end game systems, including the end game campaign.
Wow, that's actually interesting. I like the idea of the side quest being something that you can do before or after. This way, when you're leveling, you're not like, I have to do this right now, otherwise it won't have a purpose in the end. So I like that.
I hope it works out.
My second question is, in the War Within, I feel like we see a great development, a personal development in very important figures such as Anduin, Illyria, and Thrall. We can see these details in the short stories that Blizzard has been releasing recently. How challenging is it to implement deep and delicate stories in an MMORPG like WoW? And if I may ask, which character do you personally find their story to be the most interesting in this expansion?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest challenge in an MMO really is balancing out those awesome epic character moments with the player's own experience, right? Because you want to feel like you're part of the action, you're part of the adventure, rather than sort of sitting on the sidelines and watching a bunch of hero characters do stuff while you don't get to participate. And so I think that's actually the biggest challenge. I'm really excited about how that's coming together. Some of the short stories you mentioned actually help sort of flesh out the character stories behind that. But you're going to see a lot of really great experiences with Illyria, for example, and Moira, and especially her son Dagran, and a bunch of other characters throughout the expansion that I think I would argue are some of the best character stories that we've ever had in the game. And that's going to be really great. But hopefully, if we've done it right, you'll also feel like you got to be a part of that along the way. And that when you get to Nerebar Palace and you get to see Queen Ansarek and you go through that whole experience, maybe do it with your raid guild or do it in story mode, you'll actually get to feel like you got to be a part of that. So So I think that's probably the biggest challenge. Characters like Thrall and Illyria are awesome, but they also are so powerful and so momentous that they can suck up all the energy in a room. You throw Thrall into any fight, and you know how it's going to go. Thrall's going to win, right? That's just how it always goes. It's a little bit like superheroes in a lot of other types of media. So that said, I think we balanced it pretty well in this expansion. The one thing I'll add to kind of respond to your question about favorites is I personally am really fond of Illyria. I have a personal connection here because I mentioned to you that I worked on Legion. I was actually the first big piece of content that I got to be the producer for when I was earlier in my career was the patch 7.3 Shadows of Argus, where we went to Argus and the story of Illyria and the Void Elves and all of that became such a huge part of, the game story. And I got to be a part of creating that. And I was really excited. So I'm very connected to having Illyria in the game. And I'm super jazzed to see her come back, to see her explore sort of the relationship with her son, Eretor, how that's going to play out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Wow. I played Legion. I joined WoW in Cataclysm a little bit late, but I liked Legion, and reading the books and seeing Illyria in the game was definitely something that I loved, because we just read so much about her, but seeing her is different. So I'm excited about that. May I ask George, which one is his favorite?
I'm rooting for Xal'atath. I like rooting for the
Oh.
villains. I think I don't know. Heroes are great. Heroes are awesome, but there's something about villains, when done right, that really makes you want to root for them. So, no, I played a Shadow Priest, back in Legion with the artifact weapon. So for me, it's kind of crazy to be like, oh, Xal'atath existed as an artifact weapon. Now she's, in game and doing stuff and been behind the scenes, causing all kinds of chaos. So I'm really excited to see her story, and I like rooting for the villains sometimes too.
I like this. We have Bybee on Illyria and George in Xal'atath. That's
Yep.
actually very interesting. I'm curious to see how for you guys this is gonna develop.
Yeah, it'll be a fun expansion.
I think I need to change my background, George.
You do. You actually do, yeah.
Okay, my other question is, we already have seen some signs of the Ethereals. They have been having a little bit more of presence lately in the upcoming story. Could you tell us if we're going to explore more around the Ethereals and their lore, and if maybe even see what remains of their homeworld Koresh?
I think that would be cool, but I don't want to spoil future story before players have even gotten into the expansion and seen what that story is all about. I can say that the Ethereals are a big part of the whole story of what has happened with the Void in the past and their homeworld that you mentioned. Folks know about that, and the meaning of that and the impact of that is a lot of the reason why people are trying to avoid the Void having a huge impact on Azeroth right now. And so we'll see how it works out, but I think that would be really cool if we get a chance to explore the Ethereals a little bit more.
That's good to know. They are one of my favorite races, so maybe that's a good answer. I'm happy with that.
Quick aside, did you see, I don't know if you play a rogue at all, but did you see that the one of the rogue tier set armor in the War Within actually looks a lot like the Ethereals? It's really cool, I think.
Oh, I have a rogue. It's not my main. But now that you mention it, I think I might switch my mains this time. I was gonna do a healer. I think I'm gonna do a rogue now, because yes, I'm totally in for that set. Okay, my other question is, a while back, Blizzard changed their philosophy for making content for expansions, like to have fewer one expansion's features, like artifact power, Heart of Azeroth, systems that were created and then kind of left on the side. With this, will the new features from the War Within, like hero talents and the delves, be evergreen features, which will remain for the foreseeable future of the game?
Yeah, so we're definitely building on features like delves and hero talent as evergreen, meaning we're going to support them for multiple expansions. I think a lot of this started back in Dragonflight with things like the Professions revamp and the Talent revamp, where we sort of set the foundation for, building out features that are going to last more than one expansion. Players really like them, so we thought to ourselves, let's continue doing this going forward for the War Within. So yeah, delves, hero talents, all these things are things we're building out to last multiple expansions. Speaking, for hero talents only, and this is really just the beginning. Following launch, they're going to be, just as big a part of your spec and class. just a big part of your character as respecting classes. So, redesigns, updates, tweaks here and there, things of that are definitely on the table. So I'm personally very excited to see where Hero Town takes us over the course of the War Within.
I already have to say that I played the first quest that came out in the game, and I absolutely love the new look of the spell book. It's much more
yeah.
clear, much easier to navigate. I like
Yeah.
that.
And you could search in and out too. It's super helpful. Yeah, I love it too.
Okay, for next one is we know that the art teams need to be very creative, and it's okay to have inspirations, but I feel like when I saw Hallowfall, if I'm pronouncing that right, for me it's one of the most beautiful zones that I ever seen in the game because it's so unique in Azeroth. And it has a beautiful environment and architecture, and that huge crystal there, I think it's Beladar, and it gives us a semblance of day-night cycle happening in the cave. Where did the team find the inspiration for such a unique zone?
Yeah, it's actually a couple of different things that come together that create that. One is the art team really, really, really wants to make sure that you don't feel like you are in a claustrophobic cave for the entire expansion and it's just dark and you don't like it. So they, right from the beginning with this expansion, they were saying, how can we make it more open? How can we make it lighter? How can we make it interesting? They were pushing super hard into that. And at the same time, as we were exploring the story and we started to like ideate on the Erator and what their story, like, why are they here? What are they doing with the Nerubians? What's the story of all this stuff? And the idea of this like crystal came to be, and those two things sort of came together into like, oh, this is actually like a really cool way to depict the story in this space. And I think what they came up with is one of the most interesting creative zones we've ever done. I'm really excited about it. I think it's maybe my second favorite zone. My first favorite zone is Azj-Kahet because I'm super into spiders, but Hallowfall's cool too.
So does that mean you're not afraid of spiders in real life?
Okay. Full disclosure, I actually have files of spiders on my desk in my office. I'm a big fan of spiders.
Oh wow, I've already freaked out. I don't know. I see spiders, I run away. But that's interesting. Were you gonna say something, George, before I move on?
I was gonna say spiders freak me out too, so we're in the same boat.
Okay. So as a follow-up for the previous question, how big of a challenge was to create an underground theme? I think you already kind of like explained that because, like you mentioned, we don't want to feel claustrophobic, and I feel like the Zaralek Caverns was a great experiment, which I absolutely love. The Nithin that lives there, one of my favorite cute races I've seen. I wish they existed so I could hug them. How was like to create a zone that doesn't feel claustrophobic? Because you think about caverns, you think about, oh, what do I do? How do you do it?
Yeah, I think it's just asking that question over and over and over again, and then constantly pushing yourself to say, like, is this enough? I don't think it's enough. Let's try harder. Let's do more. You'll see this through the whole expansion. There are, places where the ceiling breaks through and you can see sunlight pouring down into the caverns so that you can see things growing. There's, the light that you mentioned, Crystal in Hallowfall. There's a whole bunch of places where we've done that. And just to like peel back the hood a little, this even had to go as far as changing the tools that the team uses. If you can imagine, when a level designer is building a space, it used to just assume that there was nothing over the top of them in the game world while they were building a space. And we actually had to make some changes to our tools to make it so that they could work more easily in a space that has a ceiling. And so it hit every part of the team. And I'm really excited with what they ended up with.
Wow, the amount of like work. And I don't know, I could never be a designer because, like you said, I think I would just imagine one plane and then you have to think about other things around. I don't think I could do it, so kudos to you guys. That's amazing. When talking about a possible main villain of the expansion, the first thing that comes to my mind is Xal'atath. It seems that, you have had a lot of time to develop her in World of Warcraft because we met her in Legion back in 2016. Since then, we had some development from BFA and a little bit more in Dragonflight. It took like 8 years for her to become the face of an expansion. Was this planned since Legion, or did the team just adapt during the process?
I don't want to reveal all of our inside secrets on that. But what I can say is that the usually the way that we are planning out the stories and the characters are we're very, very far into the future, what we're thinking. We don't have all the details figured out all the time, but what we do is we think, okay, what is the story we want to tell today? And in the future, where do these characters go and how does the game evolve? And, frankly, naturally, what are they going to be doing? One of the big questions coming out of Shadowlands, for example, is the character of Anduin and, all of the stuff that happened to him during Shadowlands and what would that actually do to a person? And we were asking ourselves a lot of those questions and sort of the impact long term. We've been doing the same thing, talking about Illyria and Xal'atath. Really, it was a question of like, it started out as just the dagger that George mentioned, but it was such an interesting, like, wow, that is such an interesting character, and players really love it. Let's explore that character a little bit more. And the more we dug in, the more people seemed to engage on that, and so our team got excited, and that's really where it came from.
Yeah, I think she's a very instigating, we don't know, feeling. She doesn't reveal much, and I like the feeling that we don't know how to feel about her. It's kind of scary, but I feel that's what like gives you the feeling of I'm curious. I want to know more. So that's great. And I think the development of Anduin was great. We made a video talking about it, like what he has gone through, what can make to a person. So I'm really happy to see the development of a character that detailed. My next question is, the players have complained about the design and difficulty mechanics in dungeons and raids in Dragonflight. It was something kind of common during the expansion. Like, how have you taken this feedback from the players into consideration for the design and difficulty of the mechanics for the War Within? Like, do you find it difficult to balance these mechanics, for an experienced player versus a new player?
Regarding, player sentiment and player feedback, it's something that we always take into consideration when we talk about, future content. How did the pass rate go? Did we make something that was too challenging or too difficult? How can we avoid that going forward? That's just as important to us as, what the actual design is. Making sure that we're learning from past mistakes is a huge part of, how we design content in general for World of Warcraft. In terms of balancing content for different types of players, we tend to normally rely on things like our different raid and mythic plus difficulty for that. So, for example, we tend to create normal content for players who are looking for something that's a little bit on the lighter side in terms of difficulty, and we sort of saga that content so that way when players, eventually defeat the end boss on normal, they feel like they can jump into heroic and do a few bosses here and there. And it's sort of that separation of difficulties from, LFR to normal to heroic to mythic that gives us a lot of agency in how we tune encounters. So that combined with the actual bosses in a raid really goes a long way to making sure that we have a lot of different types of content for, how big our player base is. We are also doing something a little bit new this time for Mythic Plus. We're adding a new sort of scaling system for keys over Mythic difficulty level 12, where they don't have the seasonal affix, and it's just purely for players who want to sort of push keys as much as they can without any sort of variance. But that being said, that's only really for players who want to push keys as much as they can. For players who don't want to just do Mythic Plus with their buddies, once or twice a week, that's not going to really impact their rewards. All the Mythic Plus rewards are going to be available, before that sort of like high-end scaling system. So we have a lot of different avenues to sort of adjust and make sure that we're delivering content for, our vast player base.
That's good to know. I think with this information, I might be able to keep pushing my mythics, because there was a point where I got there where it was kind of impossible. That's good to know. Okay, next one is, we know that the World Soul Saga is something really new and revolutionary. When I heard about it on the stream I was watching, I was so happy. I was like, oh my god, we're getting 3 things. Wow, what is happening? So how is for the creative team to work on such long story? Because they're kind of like connected. What is the main advantage of this style for you guys?
It's definitely a newer way to build out, the World of Warcraft, and it's been really exciting to plan for. Like you mentioned, it's a very huge story arc. It's all interconnected over the course of the World Soul Saga, which for us gives us a lot of opportunities to really sort of do, very deep dives into characters and really flesh out their relationships and goals and motivations over multiple expansions. When before, the story was sort of self-contained to one or two expansions. I will say it's also the combination of a lot of existing storylines. So over the course of the World Soul Saga, a lot of storylines from past expansions are going to culminate, and it's going to be really exciting. So we're hoping players sort of, love that too.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm super excited for all of them. The
Likewise.
Midnight one sounds like I don't know what's gonna happen there, but I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna be something big. Um, Talking about characters now, and again, both Alira and Zelatath are on the new poster of the expansion, and it's obvious that they do have some sort of like relationship going. We don't know if it's something good, if it's something bad. Because we don't know if she's actually a villain. It's just everything's out in the air. Is there like a deep connection that we're gonna see? Because maybe Zelatath is what a lyric could have been if she accepted the void, like a mirror dark version of her.
I love that idea. I think that's really cool. You're starting to that particular question. If we were to tell you the answer of that question, it would ruin the story, and I don't want to do that. But I do want to say there is a really, really supercharged connection between Xalatath and Illyria, and that is something you will see throughout this expansion. And how that ends up is going to shape the Midnight expansion that you mentioned and the future of the world of Azeroth, frankly. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm very excited to see how that plays out.
Okay, yeah, please don't tell me anything. I don't want any spoilers. I was just curious because it is such a it's such an interesting relationship. It's a relationship that we can't say if it's good or bad. So it's definitely something that triggers the curiosity because I keep questioning myself, is she good? Is she bad? Is maybe that what she could have been? So I'm
What
curious
do
to
you
see
want
that.
her to be when you think about that? Where do you want it to end up?
I don't know. I kind of like Xalatath, so I really hope that she's not like I like both of them. I really hope that she's not a bad guy, but I like the idea that she is what a Lyra could have been. I
Hmm.
kind of like that. Like I like the idea of mirror, because
Yeah,
that's very deep.
I totally agree. That's awesome. We'll have to see.
Yay. Oh yes. So Illyria again. I read the short story A Whisper of Warning. Those short stories were been amazing, by the way. They've been very helpful. We have a very interesting interaction with Erator, letting us know how he is. Seeing this, can we expect to see a greater presence of his character in the game?
I think the short answer to that question is yes. The longer question is like that's part of the fun of seeing it explored. But if you read the short story, you know that we're definitely like that tension of Illyria who left her family to go out into the universe to try to defend them, and now she comes back and she doesn't have a relationship with her son. That's heartbreaking, and she knows it, but she can't stop from still trying to be that person defending her people all the time. And meanwhile, Erator is confused and hurt, and he's gone off in his own path. And how those two try to reconcile and whether it even works is a big part of their story in this expansion. So it'll be interesting to see.
I'm not quite sure about this question, but I'll ask anyway. Horde players have been a little bit worried with the kind of focus more on the alliance side. Um, so we will see more of Thrall on this expansion, or maybe because he has some resolution of conflicts he has to do, or that's not the main case, at least on this one.
Thrall has been mentioned. I have been summoned. He's my personal favorite character. Like Michael mentioned, we can't really share too much about the story of Thrall in the World Soul Saga, but we can absolutely commit that we're going to do right by him. We know how much players love Thrall. He's my personal favorite character, so we feel the same. Can't really speak much, but we definitely have a lot of fun stuff planned for Thrall.
Like the suspense in the air. I like that. I'm curious about that. Okay, to wrap up then, I recently watched the trailer Shadows Beneath, which was incredible. Wow. A lot of people were intrigued by the characters. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correct. Arena? Um, we know that she's a Heronir and apparently in a reclusive race. Are we going to experience this culture in this expansion? Will we see more of the Heronir maybe playable in the future?
Maybe. Really, the Orwena is you get a sort of a hint of this culture. This you get an idea of maybe where her people come from, the Heronir, and what they are, and why she's even here in this expansion. A little bit in this expansion, and then we definitely aren't going to leave it there. I don't want to spoil the future, but we will absolutely will explore more about the Heronir and Orwena's background in the future.
Okay, sounds good. I probably hurt your guys' ears by saying the two names very wrong.
No, not at all. I mean, come on, the names are hard to pronounce.
Well, I think those are all the questions that I had. I'm very happy with the answers. You guys have been very patient with me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I am so excited. I am counting the days.
We are too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a huge pleasure.
Yeah, Gabby,
Thank
it was
you
great.
so much.
Yeah.
Great
It was
questions.
nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you. Yep. You
Right.
guys have a great day.
You too. Take it easy.